Graham, can I just throw some ideas at you in terms of banter sessions, but in a perhaps doing it in a slightly different way?
By all means.
Um, it would be really helpful to do a deep dive into some of the more challenging areas. So, for example, it would be really interesting to have a pretty robust conversation about air source heat pumps, for example,
Yes.
and what are the alternatives? Uh, People make an assumption that it's the nirvana to gas, but I remain utterly unconvinced, and it would be really interesting to have something on that. The other thing would be also another area that would be really useful is um, even if it's a fairly short session on retrofitting.
Yeah.
In other words, what retrofitting, what really makes the biggest difference. Where should we invest our money in terms of doing the retrofit?
Yep.
With some of it just being stuff you'd only do if you were completely remodeling your house, because the benefit is there but very small and certainly not the worth the cost.
I think those are wonderful ideas, David. And as it happens, I've got a bloke here who will be delighted to speak to us. He's runs our local community energy centre. He's got a whole solar PV farm all set up. He's thinking about a wind turbine, and he comes around and does audits of your house and tells you what retrofit you should have. So I will be delighted to put him on because I think it's a great. You've got two great ideas.
There's actually a very good study. I'll send you a link if you remind me. That was done by one of the big universities, which sent out an analysis on what's really worth doing, what's not worth doing in terms of payback period. So you could link him in with that, and that would be really useful.
That would be useful. David, would you please send me the link to that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just
I will.
reminding you. You asked me to remind you, so I
Let
am.
me see if I can find it.
All right. Well, it's past the
Could
witching
I
hour,
just
so
make a point to
yeah.
David? I think that the whole reason for going with heat pumps, etc., is to reduce our CO2. And the payback period is of interest to the person who's actually got to pay for it, but it's not the primary driver as far as I can see.
Correct.
Stuart, I know, absolutely get that, but the reality is that the normal Mark 1 human being couldn't give a stuff about CO2, but they do give a lot about how much it's going to cost.
Yeah,
Um,
I quite agree with that. But
yeah,
as
no, I
I
get
say,
you,
I
get you.
think the main driver is climate change rather
Yeah,
than
yeah,
people's
no,
pockets.
I'm absolutely with you, but the problem is that most people will not buy into that.
Well, there's a couple of links you've generated already in the chat, David, from your comments. So hopefully the ball is now rolling. And I will now press on because we're past the witching hour of 5 minutes, Grace. So let's go. Um, it's a bit of a, what's the word? Strange mixture today because I am not in the right place. We need to go there and we need to go. Bear with me a second, or should I just find myself?
Ooh.
I've got all the photographs in the way. There we go. Hmm. Well, I was going to say to everybody that it's going to be a live presentation today, and live presentations are always the one thing that you're told to never, ever, ever get into. So be prepared for shocks. What I'll be doing is most of the work in Parish Online, but there is somewhere, which I'm just seeking, a presentation which should be there, but I can't find it, which tells us what we're doing. And I apologize for this. Let me see if I can just shut everything else down. Well, we'll do the presentation, and I'll do what was my presentation off the top of my head whilst I remember it. So what we have in my old parish in Somerset is a nature project that started completely from scratch. And we had a discussion about 4 weeks ago from the guy in charge of it, who was telling us how they got going, how they got the ideas, how they got the support for it. What we've actually got now is the actual nature reserve being started. And I thought it would be interesting to people to see how you can track it or even plan it in a mapping system. I happen to use Parish Online, but that wonderful line you get from, I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. There are other products available, but we're doing it in Parish Online today because that's what many of the councils use. So what I'm going to be showing you today is how you actually set up a project in Parish Online. We're actually going to be doing it as you can sit and watch in awe or exasperation, depending upon your attitude. And hopefully at the end of it, we'll have something that will show you, A, what you can be doing in your communities, and B, some of the ideas I hope I'll be presenting will rub off for those of you who are using digital mapping systems. So let me just log in to start with. And the sharp-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I log in with a parish council login because there are bookmarks in Parish Online which are specific to the user. So if you create a whole bunch of bookmarks, nobody else can use them because they aren't you. But if you log in as a parish councillor, or as the parish councillor, if you will, then your bookmarks are visible to everybody else who logs in on the same login. So I just mentioned that as a tip. In passing, it's a multi-user system, and it doesn't matter if you all log in with the same name. So the first thing I was going to show you is that the space that we were given in Long Sutton, and this is Long Sutton here, came from a parish allotment that was only used as a field that was leased to a farmer to create hay. And so if I come down to the allotments, and I can show that to you, and it's this one. And the first thing I thought was, well, there's a nice space. It's all laid out. Rather than recreate that myself, let me just make a copy of it so that I'm saving myself some work. So to do that, I first start off by creating a new layer, which will be the one that we copy to. So it's going to be a new polygon layer. We're going to create a new layer, and it's going to be called something like Nature Reserve. I'm going to just call it polygon for reference places. And we'll go into here and we'll select a polygon and we'll say it's demonstrating nature reserve. And then we'll create a couple of data columns. So 1, 2. The second one we'll call just date. And we'll make it a date field. And should perhaps have mentioned as we're rolling along, this is all being recorded, so you'll all have access to the recording later if anyone wants to see how we did this. So I've now created a new layer, and this is what's called a parish layer in Parish Online. Everything you create yourself is in the parish layers. And they very helpfully always put your new layer right down at the bottom of the list of other layers that you've created. So here's our new one. In order to make life easy for myself, like to move it to the top so that it's the first thing I see when I open up. And in Parish Online, we do that in administration. And we go into the layers, go down to the bottom one, and say, I'd like to move you to the top. So let's redo that. And there we have it. And now we can save that and go back to the maps. And now when I open up the parish layers, that new layer will be the top one, which is handy. Now we go back to allotments. Oh, sorry, that's not a parish layer. It's a non-parish layer. So if I go back down to allotments, I've now got something to copy this field to. So I select it. Up comes the record. I tell them I want to copy it, which is that one. It asks me, what do I want to copy it to? I want to copy it to the nature reserve polygon. And it says, what you're going to call this. So this is the nature reserve. Spell. I told you this is a live issue, so things don't always go as they should do. And that spelling of a T is even worse than I started with, isn't it? One of those. Nope, one of those. Give it today's date. And we're all set. So we now have our new reserve here. We've now got something to play with. So let me just go and turn off that allotments there so that we don't get bothered by it any longer. And the first thing I thought we might like to do is take a photograph of this field as it was before we started playing around with it. So we have a sort of a, whatever that wonderful word is that tells you where you're starting from. Can't remember offhand. So what we're going to do then is turn off that layer so it goes, sorry, this disappears. But we now know where it is. So I'm just going to zoom into that particular field, which as it happens is that one. Zoom in a bit more and turn on the aerial photography and turn off the map itself. So we don't want that line underneath any longer, just for the moment. Sorry. Turn it down to 0. So that we now have a photograph of the field as it was. And then we're talking about this field.
Can you call it a baseline then?
That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Yes. You've resolved my wandering memory. So this is the field we're talking about. I'm just going to take a snapshot of that as a screenshot. And then I'll go to the screenshot and I'll rename it. And I think it's going to be on a screen that I'm not sharing. So just let me get ahead and do that. I'm going to rename it the Nature Reserve before work starts. And I'm just going to give it an imaginary date of before today. So let's call it the 1st of May. So that we know it's before the thing got started. And I'm now going to add that photograph to the record of this. Let me turn those off now. And we'll go back to you being 60%, which is roughly what it ought to be. And we'll turn you off. And now I'm going to go back into Parish Online, the layer, sorry, that one. And I'm going to add the photograph to it. So adding a photograph is going to be done in the record itself. So I pull up the record itself and I come down to where it says attachments and I just add my photograph. And that is going to be there. So now if I click on here you can see the photograph of the field before we started work. So as you said, it's a baseline. Thank you, Sheila. So we can kill that and come back to here and say, all right, now that we've got this space, what are we going to do to it? We want to add some features to it. So to add features to anything in Parish Online, you click on it first, and then you come to here and say, I want to add a feature. And the features we're going to talk about today are the ones that are actually going to be put into this nature reserve, and we have the pictures to prove it. So I'm going to create a couple of new items. So we're going to have an upper pond, and we can do today's date, why not? And so we can put that, say, and I'm going to do a weird shape, because you'll see why when we get there. This is in accordance with the design made by the people who are funding this, and I'll talk about funding later too. So having put in the shape, I can save it, and there it is. Then we can add another one, which will be the lower pond. And today's date. And we're going to put it roughly here. Now this is all approximate because you'll see why shortly. So we save it, and that's created. And now we're going to put in a sort of a combination of trees and hedgerow, which the biodiversity people are really keen on. And that's going to follow a sort of a curved line. So let me sort of do that, do that, do that, something like that. Again, it's all to be created later when we've done it. This is the hedgerow. Again, we can go to today's date and we can save it. And then lastly, they're going to put in some wildflower beds, which will be long rectangular beds over here. And so we're going to use the facility within Parish Online for doing rectangles. So you can choose from a whole bunch of sizes from football pitch downwards. And if I just choose 70 plot modern wide, it gives me a starting point. We're actually going to have something that is, let's say, it's 20 meters long and it's 2 meters wide. And we can just put it in, let's say, here. And you can see the sort of outline there is a bit faint and it doesn't like it. And I think I need to make it bigger, actually. Let's make that 40 meters long. And put it again. There we go. That's more like it. So I'm just going to orient that. And so it's roughly where it's going to be and move it. So it's roughly going to be, and that's it. So we can call that wildflower bed 1 and save it. And then do the same thing again with wildflower bed 2 and save it. And just move that bit up in there. And then I think we'll actually call that 3, and I'll try and put 2 in between the two of them. And we'll add one more, which I'll just try and bring around in between and then move it. So there we have our 3 wildflower beds. This is wildflower bed 2, isn't it? And we can put that in. So there they are. And then we say, so these should all be different colors. And we would like to have some labels on there. And I've done this deliberately just to show you that it's extremely easy to edit things in Parish Online if you've forgotten to set them up. So to set up ponds so that they come up in blue and hedgerows so they come up in green and wildflowers so they come up in purple or something, you need to add what's called styling to the record. And you can have styling that's either single class or multiple class. And if you need multiple class, then you have to add what sort of class something is. So it's the ponds are called ponds, the hedgerows are called hedgerows, and the flower beds are called flower beds. But that is a class you need to put in. And when we created our record, we didn't put in a column for class. So the point of this is to show you how we can easily edit it. So if I go back now into the administration layer, I come into my nature reserve polygon and I want to edit it. And what I want to do is to add a new field and call it class. But I want to stop people choosing whatever word they want to use. So I'm going to put 3 words to add in here so that these come as a drop-down list. So I'm going to have a pond, I'm going to have a hedgerow, and I'm going to have a wild flower bed. So I'm all happy with that. So we confirm it, and we can come out of here. If I can get everybody's, there we go. Sorry, let's put you there. We'll save that. And now we can just go back to the map and adjust the items in our layer accordingly. So let's just blow this up a bit. Click on each one. This is a pond. So we're going to say it's now got a class and we want it to be a pond. So we'll save that. Do the same with the bottom one. So you notice you click on it to highlight it. It comes up with a record here on the left. We go into the record. So we want that one. We want to edit it with the crayon. And now I'm going into class, and this is a pond. Ditto with the hedgerow. I click on it, and you'll notice that once you've selected it, it turns a nice blue. So you know which of the 2 ponds you're actually working on. So now I'm going to go to the nature reserve, I'm going to go into the hedgerow and say, I want to make that a hedgerow. Done. And then same again with the wildflowers. I want to make that a wildflower. Done. I want to make that a wildflower. That's 2. Done. And remember, we're doing this so that we can color code these things. So I'll go into the 3rd one. And class of wildflower bed. So now they've all got a class to them. And so we can go ahead and change the styling of this record. So to go into style, you click on the little cogwheel, go into style. And the first thing we want to do is to change the style type from single to class-based. We want the class-based to depend upon the class field. And we want to label these columns. So we're going to say the label column will be name. So on the 2nd column here, you can just adjust the size and color of the labels, but we'll leave them as they are for the moment. In the middle column, we can adjust the size and color of the classes. So the class, we decided we'd want the ponds to be a sort of a blue, and we'd want the hedgerow to be sort of a green, and we'd want the wildflower beds to be sort of, let's just say for argument's sake, purple. I'm sure they'll have some very colorful wildflowers in there. And then just for your references, you can see what changes you made in this preview column over on the right. So I'm going to save that. And we're going to go back to the field, and now you can see that it's all changed. We've got labels, we've got colors, and if I zoom in a bit further, zoom in a bit further, we'll find that we've got labels on here as well. All right. Now we've created so far a polygon layer, and I want to say to the man with the mechanical digger, please go and dig me 2 ponds. and I want you to dig them here. And I'm going to give him this map and he can go and dig them. But he has got a very modern mechanical digger, but it's got GPS in it. So it'd be really handy if I gave him a GPS coordinate to say, this is where I want this pond to be, at least where the center of it's to be. So in Parish Online, you can get the GPS coordinate of anything, provided you've got a point. So what I'm going to do now is just very quickly create a point there. And we'll call this nature reserve point. And it's going to have just point geometry, demo of GPS, let's say. And it just needs one field with a name on it for the moment. And again, we can always come back and change this if we find it wants something more. So now it's same old problem. We've got the new point layer is going to be all the way down at the bottom, and that's way too far away for me to fight with. So I want to go into, and you're now fighting with all these names, administration, go down and find the point layer and bring it to the top. There we go. Save that. And go back to the map. And now you can see the point of, now we're going to do multiple layers turn on at the same time. So if I turn on, sorry, where are we? We're down here. If I turn on the polygon, you can see our field. And if I turn on the points, you can see nothing, but I'm going to add some points as features. So we click on the cogwheel, go into add a feature. And the first one will be the upper pond. And we're going to put this in the middle of the upper pond. You can always blow this up a bit to make yourself more precise. So I'm just blowing this up, and I'm going to put the pond center point right in the middle there. And save that. Do another one for the lower pond. Same thing. Stick it there and save it. And we can do the same for these things as well. So we'll do a hedgerow. And I'm not going to bore you all by doing it over and over again for everything, but we'll just do these. So now we've got points everywhere. And if I go onto a point and I right click on it, sorry, I'll need to come out of the edit mode at the moment. If I go to the right click on the point, it says copy the coordinates. And you can either do what's called a WGN coordinate, which is decimalized, or you can do a lat long coordinate, which is also decimalized, but it's much more recognizable because we all know that sort of Britain is somewhere between 50 and 60 north and somewhere between sort of 2 east and 6 west. So those numbers will make sense if you see them. But if you just copy them, they go into your clipboard. And now you can print out this map and you can print the clipboard coordinates to it. And then the guy with his fancy machine will know exactly where to go and dig his ponds. So that's the point of using this as a sort of a helpful guide to people. For those of you who've not seen what print looks like in Parish Online, you can just select the print menu, call it the Nature Reserve, and you can just say for the pond diggers, and we'll give it a legend, and we'll say go. Now, the reason for putting names in here, you don't have to put in something, but what you do when you've got your print, I'm just clicking on this here now, is it gives it a title, which is that one, and it's why it's 4, and here are our points. Here are our the legend of what the colors mean, and I would just have to add those coordinates to this as a text file. Now, this print you can now either print out on paper, or you can save it to a file electronically and email it off to the guy with the digger. So that was sort of more or less a quick run around of just very quickly how you can use digital mapping to get a project started. Then the question comes, so what happens when they got going on this project? And so I'm just going to show you the particular people who are doing this in our WhatsApp group, and you'll see that we have any number of photographs. So here's the photographs of a compost maker being put together. There is the first of the sunflowers that's just come out, planted by the school. A lot more there. These are pictures of the ponds being dug in precisely the same coordinates, but you can see that this is not a round pond, far from it. But this is recommended by the people who funded the ponds. So we went along with their advice, and I'll talk to you about them in a second. But basically, people are actually doing this project from the project plans that we've created. And the results are we're starting to see already changes in the biodiversity. So remember, this was just a hayfield before. Whenever the grass is cut, then that does a lot of sort of away with a lot of the biodiversity. What we're trying to do now is to make it more permanently diverse. So just in passing, people were worried that kids were going to fall in and drown. So we put a post in that we're going to hang a life belt on. There's the digger at work. We were given a whole bunch of signposts by the local wildlife people. And what else have we got? They took the chance to build a hibernaculum and the different types. So there'll be one for the reptiles, and another for the amphibians, and a third for things like hedgehogs. Anybody who likes to live underground or in nice, safe area. There we go. There's the bottom pond, which is a bit more circular, but still rather more long and sort of banana shaped, I think, more than round, and certainly deeper in the middle and the right-hand end than at the top. Again, all designed to go that way. So the reason I'm showing you all the photographs is that because they're generating the results that we're seeing here. So this is a brown banded carder. Not as rare as the shrill carder, but we found both in these areas since we started building the nature reserve. So it's quite exciting. Another reason for having digital mapping is that I'm assuming you're all seeing these photographs. I'm sorry, no one's saying anything, but good.
We've turned our mute on, you see, so you can talk quite happily to yourself.
The point of digital mapping is that you can look at working with other parishes and building bee and hedgerow corridors. So the work that you're doing here, you can tie in with neighboring parishes or other parishes sort of a county away on the grounds that you're working towards building a corridor that lets the wildlife move around rather more safely than they might otherwise be doing. So having shown you that all these photographs exist, then the reason for showing you is that we can go back to the, so there, and start adding pictures to the individual shots. So if I now go into my pond, and I want to come out of there, and I want to go into there, select it, go into the pond, upper pond, I can now start adding photographs of this. So where are we going? In the upper pond will be called upper pond, possibly. Yes. So we'll put in 2 pictures there, one at a time, and another one.
Can you just tell me where you're getting these pictures from?
Yeah, I took them from WhatsApp. That WhatsApp
Have
where
you
I
put
showing you all the
Parish
pictures.
Online?
Sorry?
Did you put them onto what, Parish Online? Or they just...
Well, no, I exported them from WhatsApp into a folder on my computer.
Yeah.
And now I'm gone to Parish Online and say I want to add attachments, and I'm just adding the photographs to the appropriate places. So there's the second
From your own file then.
Well,
file
yes,
system.
but it's just a temporary save to my computer so that they would get atable. And then once they're in Parish Online, they stay in Parish Online, and they're part of your Parish Online database, which is stored somewhere on Amazon's web service. So once these pictures are here, they stay here. If you need to see them, you click on the title. If you want to download them yourself, you click on the download arrow. So to see it, you click there, and to download it, you can just click here. So basically, you can do this for all of these things here. So I can say, okay, I've done it to you. I now want to go to here and do the hedgerow. So sorry, click on here. Let's go into the polygons. I didn't mean to turn you off. I meant to click on you. There we go. And I can go into the hedgerow and I can add photographs here as well. And I think for the hedgerow, I had a dog bouncing around. Yeah, this was rather fun. So I thought I'll just load that up for you. And you can watch him. And he's basically, here's the hedgerow. A lot of school children and a lot of adults came out very enthused about planting trees and what's going to grow into much more of a hedgerow. So the hedgerow will have a couple of big trees to anchor it here and there to provide sort of higher roosting places for the higher birds. And then the hedgerow will provide roosting places for the lower birds. And the dog is there to show you that, yes, we've got to think about the wildlife and how we're going to let people use this nature reserve with dogs, but without letting the dogs trouble everything that we hope is flourishing in the nature reserve. So hopefully I've shown you how you can track a product. I'm going to do my best. Let me just stop sharing for a second so I don't embarrass myself. Whilst I go and find this.
Graham, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just go back to those coordinates, because you've got the red dots, but when you printed did the map, there was no coordinates. You just had red dots down the side.
No, I mentioned. I thought I mentioned in passing that you'd have to, when you click on the copy coordinates, it puts them into the clipboard. Then you need to copy from the clipboard to a document, and then add the document to the map. As a separate document. You print out the map, you print out the document, and say, here's the coordinates of the upper pond, here's the coordinates of the lower pond. One of the other things is, yeah. So as soon as I found this, I don't want a spreadsheet. Oh, that's my problem. Okay, I found the issue. Good. Let's go into there and see if I can find my. Right, good. We now have an agenda. So if I go back to sharing with you all. And can you now see a digital mapping title?
Yes.
Good. So let me just go into here and go into slideshow mode. So you would have got this lovely notice from me if I'd thought about it, but I didn't. What I was going to show you today was how we use digital mapping to map Let's Create a Nature project. We're going to show you layers, which I'll get onto in a minute. We've done attachments. We're going to talk about public maps. You've seen the Ordnance Survey map that underlies all of this and keeps it running. We've talked about creating our own layers, which we've done. I'm going to chat to you about geolocation, and I'm going to chat to you about a fining system. All right. So the next slide was going to show you how layers work. And I wondered how many people amongst us remember these things, because the overhead projectors were the first step on the way towards digital mapping. So you'd get a lovely crystal clear piece of cellophane, and you'd type on it with your typewriter and produce whatever it was you wanted to talk about. You put it on the projector, and then with a magic marker in your hand, you'd say, I'm now going to talk to you about this paragraph, and you put a big red circle around it, and everyone would know what you were talking about. And if you were really advanced, you would then take a second piece of cellophane with, say, a photograph on it, and you would overlay this layer, and you'd now be showing two layers at once. So the advantage of digital mapping is that it's doing these layers for you, but it's doing them electronically. So this is sort of the process that we've gone through. First, find our field, which we found as one of our allotments. Second, set it up as a new parish layer. We've done that. Then we copied the old allotment to the new parish layer so that we had the geometry. We've added the new features, which were all polygons. We styled them with colors and labels, and we added points for the GPS. We sent the maps to the workers. For those people who had a digger with a GPS, we gave them the GPS figures, and we had them take photos of the features. Now, when you've got that, it'd be nice if someone sent up a drone and took an overhead photograph, which you could then slap on top of the map. You'd adjust the size of the map so it matched the photograph, and then you'd have an exact copy of what the shape is now of the ponds, what the shape is of the hedgerow layer, and what the shape is of the wildflower layers. So the map now matches precisely the actuality on the ground. So we've done all that. Then I was moving on to this last little bit, was to show you the use of third-party layers and cadastral plots and a bit more. So let me go through. We've done this. Got to show you the public maps. Got to show you the geolocation, and got to show you the filing system. So let me talk about this because before I go back into the demo. So the sources of funds for this project, the parish council in Long Sutton very nicely provided the land. So that's a big feature, and whether other communities will be this fortunate, I don't know. But the parish council also voted £1,000 to the Environment Committee to spend as they saw fit. And that is really, really useful, because when you find that you need a new shovel, or you haven't got a hose pipe to put the water in with, it's nice to have just a few pounds at your disposal. You can go out and get them, and it doesn't delay things. The momentum keeps going, the volunteers are happy, and so that is. The whole thing brought out a whole bunch of volunteers, right? Once they could see that they were going to be useful, we had lots of manpower, no shortage of manpower, no shortage of enthusiasm, and the WhatsApp group has been really lively. A local farmer lent us his digger, so we didn't have to pay for that. Ditto for the turf cutter, and ditto again for a local water supply. The farmer said, you can just catch a hose up to my hose and off you go. And don't worry about metering and that sort of thing. We'll just make it as part of my commitment to the community, which was really nice. So that really worked. Then we went to the Somerset Wildlife Trust, and they came up with all sorts of beautiful signs and signposts. You saw the signposts. I showed you a photograph of that. The signs I didn't show you, but they're really going to be gorgeous. So that was their input. Then there was this wonderful thing called FWAG, which is Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group, which are part of Natural England. And they gave us £3,000 initially, and then we said we were going to do 2 ponds. So we're waiting to see if they're going to fund us for both ponds, or whether the 3,000 has to stretch to both of them. But because the digger was provided free of charge, and Wessex Water had given us £1,000 as well for the digging, we went back to Wessex and said, could we please use your money on all the plants and the seeds that we're going to put around everything, because we don't need your money for the digger. And they said yes. What they said is they wanted it to be really helpful to the community. So the plants, the seeds, the wildflowers, everything we put in had to be able to be demonstrated to be, a useful source of biodiversity, a useful source of CO2 absorption, whatever it happened to be. All the things that people choose these plants for, we needed just to write a report to Wessex saying, thank you very much for the money and here's what we've done with it. And the FRAG people came up with the designs as well. So how deep to build the ponds, what shape to put them in, that sort of thing was all done for us by FRAG, and they provided the money. So it's been a very uplifting project for everybody because all the initial problems have been solved, and now we're on to the good things of, well, what next? Where's the path going to go that people can walk around without disturbing the wildlife or the flowers or falling into the pond? But we do want them to, the dog walkers, to feel that they're not shunned. So they're going to come in, but we have to think about that. So all the good sources. So before I go on to any questions, let me just show you the things I promised to show you. So we're going to come out of here and go to there. And we're going to come out of there and go into Parish Online. Come on, come on, come on. Having said that, there we go. So I promised to show you a couple of useful things I think are useful. So everything you do in Parish Online is able to be published on your parish website. So there is a feature within Parish Online called Public Maps. And basically it takes whatever you've got and churns it out into either a URL, which you can just put onto your website, or it gives you the code for your webmaster to put onto your website, and the 2-page actually arrives on your website. The real beauty for me of Public Maps is that if you then come back and make changes in Parish Online, those changes are immediately reflected on your public website. You don't have to go back and make any further changes. Anything you do in Parish Online is automatically reflected in the website, which I think is wonderful news. So I throw the word public map at you for the moment because we're running out of time. I could show it to you if people are interested afterwards. So public map was one of the items to show you. The other thing to show you, or at least to mention to you, was geolocation. So I think one of the most attractive things about Parish Online is that you can use it on your phone or your tablet. And you just turn up your browser, you go to the Parish Online website, and your local community comes up on your phone. You can set it up with GPS so that as you move around, the website moves with you. So as you stand in front of the pond here with your phone pointing at it, you will be able to take a photograph, and the photograph will immediately get attached to this record. And when you go to here and take a photograph of here, lo and behold, off you go. And the reason I think this is particularly appealing is because one of the big groups of people that we hope to be enjoying the nature reserve are school children. And if you tell the kids, we're going to go out into the country, bring your phones, and anything you photograph will appear on the village website, that's really enthusiastic reception that you get. And we've tried it. I think those of you who know me will know that we sent out one of those Indian, what do they call them, Indian files, the groups of school children all going around, and they all took their phones, and we said, we're going to put on the map, you're going to help us, all of the village bus stops. So when you see a bus stop, please take a photograph of it, and then we'll load it into the map. And they thought this was really exciting. And about 12 went out, and we came back with about 24 bus stops, which I thought was fascinating because there are no bus stops in our village. So they've been very imaginative. If you couldn't find a bus stop, they just made one up, which I thought was great. So that's geolocation. Is the beauty of the ability to use your phone to add data to Parish Online whilst you're out in the field. So provided you've got a cell phone signal out here, you can take a photograph of those carder bees or the brown striped bees or whatever else you see that's arrived, and put it into the place where you saw it. Fascinating, really useful. And the last thing I promised to show everybody was I believe that Parish Online is a fabulous filing system. And the way I demonstrate that to people is to show how we use it here. Now, I promised you that we would have, or have we got some land somewhere? Bear with me. Children's playground. So let's say, for an example, you're anybody in the parish, but particularly you might be a councillor, and you happen to want to look at the latest copy of the playground report that you have to have done every year, or whatever it is. So I would say, well, where's a logical place to go and find the playground report? Why don't you go and look at the playground? So if I go and look at the playground in Parish Online, turn off our layers, I guess. Bear with me, it's just so we're not confusing everybody. And you'll see that I turned on the playground, and here it is. If I go and click on it and bring up the record, lo and behold, there is the report. Do I see the report somewhere? Playground inspection report. And there it is. Now that was easy, wasn't it? It's online, it's available 24/7 to anybody who wants to see it, and they don't have to trouble the parish clerk. They don't have to go and fight to get into a locked up filing cabinet or even a locked up village hall. It's all online. What more could be simpler than that? And then I said, well, let's take this a step further, and we'll come out of here and say, how do we store all the information that everyone wants to need? The first thing they want to do if they go into the village hall, for instance, is to find out what the Wi-Fi code is. So if I go into view and those bookmarks I mentioned earlier, I have one for the village hall operations manual. And here is the village hall, and everything you need to know is here. So if you want to know what the Wi-Fi password is, you click on Wi-Fi, and here they are. If you want to know about the solar panels, how much did it cost to put the solar panels on the roof? You click on the solar panels, and you can go and look at it, and you can see the documents. And one of these will be the original invoice. So, there's the inverter. There's probably the manual for using it. Yeah. But I think that as a filing system for people who are not used to filing, it just makes sense to put everything in a visual place. If you're talking about the village hall, put everything to do with the village hall and the village hall. If you're talking about the church, and so it goes. So just my little hopefully helpful idea to seed in people's minds that there is much more to a mapping system than just drawing maps. And I think that's now completed everything I promised to show you. I will now stop sharing, and people can now abuse me as they wish. Yeah, right, Sheila, yes, all this filing is indeed covered by your annual places. Sorry, your annual payment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I just find that everything costs, doesn't it?
Well, not once you've paid for Parish Online, everything I've shown you today is built into it. It doesn't matter how much data, how many photographs, how many documents, how many spreadsheets you store there, the cost doesn't change. So
great news. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome.
Great news.
I hope everybody enjoyed that and didn't get bored rigid. But
no, very
Thank
very
you.
useful. Thank you, Graham. Yeah, no, really useful.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you.
You're welcome. If nobody else has anything else they want to say, I will wish you all a very glorious, wet and windy Wednesday afternoon.
You're going to
I've got
send
loads of things to do now. Thank you.
You'll send the recording out, will you, Graham?
What was that one?
You send the recording over to us.
Oh yes, well it comes. Yes, I let everyone know when it's up on the knowledge base for you to see. So yes.
Thank you. That's
You-
brilliant.
Thanks, Graham.
Very
That's
much.
Lovely to see you all. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.